Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. We get together most weekday mornings at 8 o'clock Central to talk about the grant we received. As a 501c3 nonprofit, we applied for and received a grant that has three essential components or mandates, one of which is to help build financial literacy. And that's important because a lot of people want money to start or grow a business, but they often don't know what it takes to qualify. The second mandate is to provide for free shelf corps. And that's because, again, if we want business funding, we need to have a fundable business to get funding from. A lot of people don't have a fundable business. They may have a business, but it's often not fundable. So the shelf corp has been determined to be the easiest, fastest, most effective way to meet that criteria. And again, the grant covers that. And then the third and final mandate is to help grant participants use those shelf corps to get money to start to grow a business or to buy another business. We'll talk about all those options over the next few minutes. And in fact, we're so certain that the model, that the formula works, we actually guarantee a minimum of 100,000 capital raise, but most of the grant participants want more and get more than that. So my screen should be shared with you, and I like to use a little notepad here that helps us keep track of where we're at. But in the background, we're on 509pacific.org. That is our 501c3 nonprofit. And anyone that's interested in participating in the grant can come to 509 Pacific. And it's real simple here, and we'll go through some of this information. Below that, we're always hiring grant coordinators. There's no cost, no contract you have to sign, but grant coordinators help us do these things. They help us go out and educate and help clients get enrolled in grants. And you make around 5,000 for each person you refer in. It's not MLM, not network marketing, no cost. And then our contact information's here at the bottom on 509 Pacific as well. But our focus today is going to be primarily on the top. We're going to cover a few key concepts that's really important because what I'm assuming that's brought us together this morning is you have interest in getting money to start or grow a business. And the truth is, at the beginning of that solution to that problem, it really doesn't matter what you need the money for. We need to have a fundable business. And so that's a very important concept. So the Shelf Corp, as I mentioned in the opening, provides a structured, packaged, fundable business. So if you were to go to 509pacific.org and click on this link here, it'll actually bring up the contract packet, the grant participant packet. I'm going to go through a little bit of this. And again, you're welcome to go on 509 Pacific and review it in more detail. The first page of the free Express Shelf Corp packet is a flyer that gives some pretty good information, who should participate, some background, but what's included. Now, what's included is strategically important, right? Because if our goal is to help grant participants get at least 100,000 of funding, we need to position them to be able to do that, right? That's the problem that we're solving. So what's included in the free Shelf Corp is, first of all, a business entity you see here in the first bullet. So theoretically, as a sole proprietorship, just as an individual, could you go borrow money to start or grow a business? You could, but it's not ideal from a liability perspective. And then secondly, you wouldn't have near the borrowing capacity. So part of the grant free provisions is providing a business entity that's clean, that's in good standing, and as well as the EIN. So a business entity is always going to be filed through the state, Secretary of State typically, and then also needs to be filed with the IRS, the federal government, the EIN. So that's included. When we structure these Express Shelf Corps, they are all set up under, as you see, the second sub-bullet as a business management consultant industry code. That's one of the easiest to get funded. Now you might say, well, that's not what I want to do. That's not what my business is. Well, the SIC code isn't restrictive. You could be a business management consultant and anything else. So it doesn't restrict or prevent you from doing whatever you want, but from a structure, from an optical perspective, this is ideal for getting funding, which is obviously what we're here to facilitate. Bylaws are included. You're 100% owner, so it's clean. There's no baggage that comes with it. It's a good entity. We also provide a business plan already put together. So this is not one of those things where we have to sit down and spend hours and hours vetting through and figuring out how to build a business plan. It comes to you ready to go. Also, a unique commercial address. A lot of people underappreciate the importance of the address of your business. So, the address of your business can absolutely prevent you from getting funded. We need to have a unique commercial address, not residential, not post office box, not a shared address. The address is included. Now, you'll pay the mail forwarding, of course, as you'd expect, and that's a nominal expense, but the address itself is included for free, and it's, of course, tied to the business entity. Financials are very important, and a lot of entrepreneurs I know, they have a passion, they have a vision, that they're very good at strategy, but sometimes they're not so good with the numerics of business. So there are key business financials that lenders want to see. We know that, therefore we provide that, and that includes a balance sheet and P&L, profit and loss. So you might say, well, how am I going to show the lender that I can afford to pay back the loan, especially if you've not been profitable in the past to piggyback off of? Well, that's where projections come in, and we actually build financial projections out in detailed fashion. Those are provided. You don't have to put any time or effort into those, and those are projected out 3 years, 36 months, and that, in fact, is what most lenders want to see. And then also we include collateral. Why is that important? Because to no surprise, a lot of times lenders want collateral that in case the borrower shouldn't, if the borrower did not pay back the loan, the lender is protected. So this is kind of the basis, the foundation. Let's say you and I were going to go build a house. This is kind of the foundation that's needed. And we call this phase one. So let me go ahead and pull up my notes and clarify. So phase, if I could spell it, phase one is providing the express shelf corp. People always ask, well, how long does that take? It takes right about 7 days. In about 1 week, we can provide that to you. As far as the cost, because I'm just going to try to go through and nip in the bud key questions. So what is the timing? About 7 days for us to deliver that. Could be a little less, could be a little more, but normally. The cost, the grant covers the cost, only a one-time processing fee. And then I need to go ahead and add plus postage. What does that mean? Well, I just want everyone to be clear. So we're providing the address through the grant. However, on top of that, we need to forward your mail, and so we just have a pass-through reimbursement of postage. So great deal for phase one. Now, a lot of people say, no, I already have a business. Well, great. If you have a fundable business, you don't need phase one from us. We can go right to phase two. But you can see that there's a number of requirements, and frankly, a lot of people don't have an entity that's in good standing. They don't have a good address. They don't have a good business plan. They don't have financials. They don't have collateral. So it's easier to kind of get this as a business in a box. Now, theoretically, we can work with individuals to take their own business and get it compliant, but that literally takes more time and effort. And when we have a grant that's willing to provide this to you for free, that doesn't prevent you from getting the money through the Shelf Corp and then transferring it to your other business if needed. So that's phase one in a nutshell. Does anyone have questions on phase one? Okay, I see a question from Armand, and so that's a good point. He's asked about funding. There's no funding in phase one. This is a prerequisite for going and getting business funding. So nothing about phase one is about funding itself. Now we're going to address funding, but frankly, that's phase two. So it's very, I appreciate that Armando pointing that out. Two different phases. So phase one, we have to have a fundable entity or we can't go to funding. So let's go ahead and then progress down. So I'm back to 509 Pacific. You can come here. There is a great video that you can watch that'll give you a lot of information. The video is brought up here. It breaks down phase one and phase two. So you can go a lot deeper if you want on the website. But right now we're going through the grant packet. Gilda's asking about the processing fee, and that's a great point. So the processing fee, the amount of the processing fee depends upon the referral partner that you're working with. Some of them are accountants, some of them are lawyers, some of them are consultants. They have different propositions and different processing fees. So if you're referred by one of our what we call grant coordinators mentioned down here, you can ask them. If you come right to our website, 509 Pacific, the processing fee is less than $500. So it's not a big deal. And that covers our attorneys getting all the documentation of the business put into your name. Okay, great question, Gilda. Thank you for that. All right, so now let's go back to the packet. And so we're going to scroll down. I believe that everyone should have choices, but a lot of times when it comes to this topic, many people aren't as sophisticated as you and I, and they don't really know how to evaluate options. So we want to facilitate everyone being able to evaluate the grant versus their other options. So literally, when you go to 509 Pacific, click on the grant packet, which I'm on now. We were just on the first page. Now we're on the second page. The second page is designed specifically to help potential grant participants go through a side-by-side comparison because it may be that we're not the best option for some people. We understand that. But what this comparison sheet does is it breaks down what's included in the grant program, and individuals can compare that to their other options. So they can write in their other options. So for example, through our program, we guarantee funding. It's written, it's a guarantee. So that's included. So if someone's considering other options, is it guaranteed in writing? Often not. We include the business plan, as I mentioned before, and it's already put together. It's not like, oh, we'll help you build a business plan and hopefully in 30 days we'll have it done. No, it's delivered to you in that same 7 days. That's included. As you're considering other options, that's a good question to ask. Free financials. We talk about how important it is to have financials. Lenders want to see financial projections. They want to see the balance sheet of the business. And so that's part of what we include. If you're looking at other options, does it or not? We talked about the importance of a commercial address, the entity, and the EIN. You can't get around those three. So yes, it's included. As you're considering other options, you can determine. Collateral is crucial. That's a key reason why a lot of people don't get approved for traditional business funding, even if they have everything else that comes with it. Don't know if that's in your other options. The Opportunity Fund is a big deal. The Opportunity Fund actually is designed to provide daily deposits into your business bank account. That's included, accessible through our option. Don't know if that's available in others. And then it was Gilda asking about the processing fee, which is stated here. So this comparison sheet, I think, is really important because sometimes people just don't know the right questions to ask. And this, in fact, helps guide you through not only what's included, but to compare options. And maybe we are the best fit, maybe we're not. And then it goes on into the participation agreement. So let's get back over to the main page and the notes. All right, so I see a question from Lamont, and it's a good question, and he's asking what type of funding? Well, that's a great point, and the answer is it's up to you. So we work with each grant participant to put together what's called uses of funds. That's a technical term in the industry, which is essentially your shopping list, right? How much money do you want, Lamont, and what are you going to use it for? because it's not accurate to think, oh, I can just ask for some flat amount of money and go get it from a large amount of money and get it from a bank or a lender. They're going to want to know what are your uses of funds, your shopping list. So we'll help you in phase two build that out. So that's up to the client, but I will give you a sample typical structure of a use of funds. But again, it depends because let's say TJ's on here, and let's say TJ says that I don't know if TJ's a male or female, but let's assume male. TJ wants to buy a business. Okay, great. So we can go over to websites like Biz Buy Sell, and there's all kinds of businesses for sale. So we could use this funding to get a shelf corp and use that shelf corp to be able to buy existing businesses of just about every different industry. There's, in fact, just on this website alone, over 1,000 established businesses for sale, over 1,000 real estates, 500 and some startup businesses, franchises. So when it comes to uses of funds, it's really up to the client. But I think what Lamont's asking me to do is kind of put together what a typical package would look like. So we'll do that. So first of all, we need to address the term loan. The term loan is typically the largest amount allocation of the funding. And so usually that, not always, but usually it's like an SBA 7A loan. Doesn't have to be, but that's typical. That can go up to 5 million, and that's what we call working capital. So in other words, it's not allocated to some specific asset purchase. I'll get to those examples. So at the core of each uses of funds for each client, which we work with them during phase two. You might say, well, why do we do that in phase two? Why don't we do it in phase one? Because if we don't have a fundable business, phase two can't happen. We're wasting your time and our time just talking on phase two. We need to have the prerequisite of phase one. We need to have a fundable business entity to work off of. So usually the term loan is a big part. Now, again, it's up to each client of grant participant and what they want. Business autos are common. Don't have to do it, but most of us need a vehicle anyway. We recommend getting 1 to 2 business vehicles. Those are real nice trade lines. They report well on Dun and Bradstreet. You can use them. It's up to you, but getting a business automobile is very common. Thirdly, business credit cards. No, this isn't all about getting business credit cards, but in general, it makes sense to have 2 business credit cards. Because what happens? You book your flight and you don't want to pay it on personal and reimburse yourself through the company. You want to be able to pay your incidental expenses off of a business credit card. So that's not the core of what we do, but I think as we talk about a normal package, and I guess that's what we're describing here, what's a normal use of funds? So again, the term loan can be as much or as little as the client needs. We don't want to borrow too much nor too little. They don't have to get business automobiles, but that makes a lot of sense. You need transportation anyway, tax deductible. Business credit cards make sense because we're going to have incidental expenses. Usually we'll get a line of credit. A line of credit looks a little bit like a business credit card, but again, it can be pulled from as you need. You pay it down, the credit line reopens, so it makes sense. And then the fifth element of a normal uses of funds would be real estate. Again, you don't have to do this, but we're all going to need a business address. So we'll provide the business address to get started. Remember, we talked about that over here. We'll provide the business address. It was listed here and it was listed here. But frankly, it's our business. We bought the property and now we provide addresses. But eventually, you'll probably want to have your, because you're either going to pay a landlord or be a landlord, right? To simply put it. And so all of these are optional. But I think, who was it now? I think it was Lamont asking, what's a normal use of funds? This here will vary tremendously. And so then there can be other variables like, oh, I want to go buy a business. Well, which business do you want to buy? I want to buy a home interior renovation franchise for 1.1 million, or no, I want to buy a restaurant for 850,000. So you can see that the uses of funds are very individual, very specific to the specific participant. Okay, so let's get into your questions because at this point, I think you know enough. You know where to go to get more information, 509 Pacific. You can watch the video and get a 35-minute overview, deeper discussion of phases one and two. You know where to get the grant participant package if you want to participate. You don't need me to read all that to you, but what I want to focus our time today, what we have remaining, are answering your questions because maybe you've gone through that information, but you have questions, and so that's why we're here today. So let's go through those. Darius has mentioned the credit repair, and that's a good point. We added the credit sweep. Thank you, Darius. We added the credit sweep as a free benefit because some people, they have kind of questionable or less than perfect personal credit. So the grant was expanded to include that. And so that is a good point, Darius. So that is part of the deliverables in phase two. Thank you for that. Kenny's bringing up the onboarding form. So that's right. So once you complete phase one, which takes us about 7 days, we'll go into phase two and we'll be sending you what we call an onboarding or an intake form. And that's where you're going to tell us about this. So we're not going to just have a loose conversation. We need to have documentation of what you're wanting. Therefore, and I'll make this real estate and or acquiring an existing business. And again, all these are optional. These aren't requirements. These are just example, normal. All right, let's see. Looks like Darius needs some individualized assistance. Yeah, so anyone that needs one-on-one, text our support lines the best way to handle that, 903-347-8042, or you can even schedule a one-on-one. Thank you, Darius, for that. Lamont's asking more about the grant. So the grant provides the Shelf Corp for free. So we used to sell the Shelf Corp before we had the grant for 10,000. Then we got the grant. It was reimbursed by the grant. Now the grant is what we call an advancement grant. So the individual does not have to pay the 10,000. The grant pays for it. All they're paying for is the processing fee, and the processing fee amount is determined based upon the grant coordinator they're working with. If they come to us directly, I've already shown you that it's $499. Okay, great question. So let's go back. Let's see what else. Yeah, so everyone gets the 10,000 grant. You don't have to jump through any hoops. TJ's also asking, can we work with for-profits and nonprofits? Yes. So when we build the uses of funds, it needs to be specific to the client's mitigating circumstances. And so they may want some of these things, they may not. Some of these things they may qualify right away, some they may not. A nonprofit is going to have a different capital raise strategy than a for-profit, but yes, either can participate. Okay, Natalie had just recently opened an LLC in Wyoming. She has the EIN and address, and so that's great. Yeah, so Natalie, if you already have a fundable business to work off of, that's great. Then we can take you right into phase two. That's not a problem, and that's wonderful. That saves you 7 days, so that's great. If what we often see though is people will have some elements of a fundable business but missing some items. Maybe the address is not what it needs to be, they don't have collateral or what have you. If you don't have everything, it's typically easier, faster, quicker to go ahead and use the Express Shelf Corp, get all those free benefits, and then raise the capital through the Express Shelf Corp, and you could always transfer it to the other entity. And especially since the grant's providing this, you can't go wrong with that. All right, let's see here. Yeah, and Kenny's bringing up some points. Yeah, so on the business credit cards are normally 25 to 50,000. Lines of credit are normally about the same. Business automobiles, I mean, it's whatever it is that you want. Most of us kind of, whether it's wise or not, will tend to go get an exotic car for a business automobile. So for us, we bought a Lamborghini. And so not a real practical business vehicle, but oh my goodness, does it get attention? I took a young lady out on a date last night, and people are taking pictures of you, and it gets a lot of attention. So if you are in a business where you're wanting to be known, getting an exotic car, a Ferrari, Lamborghini, Bugatti, anything that's really high-end exotic will get a lot of good natural attention if you don't mind being kind of the center of attention. All right. Let's see. And Debbie has individualized questions. So what do we do? If we have individualized client questions, you want to text in on the support line. We have questions about international. Yes, so it's fine for international participants. You do not have to be US based to participate in the grant, so that's not a problem. Jonathan's asking about the opportunity fund, and so is, I think, Drake, so we can go back to that. So let me pull up my notes screen. In general, when it comes to business funding, there's a concept that's called the 3 C's. Credit, and we're talking about business credit, collateral, and capacity. Capacity is known as cash flow. So if we want so each of these types of uses of funds has different underwriting criteria. A term loan is what we've built this program to be qualified for. We want to help participants qualify for a large business term loan. May or may not be an SBA loan. So I'm not just saying only that. So some of you are fixated on that. So it might be SBA, might not. But this is what our program's built around. To get large term loans, we typically need all 3 C's. However, some of these others don't. So for example, a business automobile, it serves as its own collateral. So would our business have to have collateral to get your Lamborghini? No, because the Lamborghini serves as its own collateral. If we wanted to go buy real estate, would your Shelf Corp need collateral to buy real estate? No, because the real estate's collateral. So when it comes to business credit cards, that's self-reported, so we don't have to demonstrate capacity. So these are the 3 C's. Different types of funding have different requirements. We're building at the kind of the highest level so we could qualify for all of these. But again, it's up to the grant participant. Okay, so let's see. Jonathan asked commercial dress. Yeah, so the commercial dress is free. They'll pay for the mail forwarding, right? We covered that. We don't want anyone come back and say, well, who's going to pay my postage? You would pay your postage, of course, but that's a nominal expense. But the address is free for the life of the business. But hopefully, quite frankly, we'll end up getting you real estate, because what did we say? Everyone's either a landlord or they have a landlord. Wouldn't you rather have your own? Quick funny story. So we bought real estate. We bought a lot that had a commercial building on it with the intent of building a new office building, which will actually be moving in the next 30 days. Some people are critical. You'll run into lots of critics and pessimists. Like some people say, well, you guys bought a Lamborghini. You're dumbasses. You should have got a Ferrari. Well, everyone has an opinion. We bought our own real estate for our business, and people say, oh, that's not the right type of real estate. Everyone has an opinion. Don't worry. Don't get distracted. Usually it's broke people that want to be critical. So we just need to work on your business. What is it that you need money for? We'll build it out. And we guarantee it, right? We already said the funding's guaranteed. There's no risk. There's no risk to you. All right, let's see what else I'm missing. We're running a little short on time. Timeline, Darius is asking about again. So the timing for phase 1 is very predictable. When we get into phase 2, we need to work with the individual client to determine what they want, right? Because as you can imagine, Darius, the use of funds would make a difference. Are we looking for a term loan? Yes or not? If so, how much? Are we looking for 100,000? Are we looking for 100 million? That's going to change it. Business automobiles, we can get right away. Business credit cards, we can get right away. If personal credit's an issue, we've talked about the credit sweeps included. Lines of credit, we can usually get right away. Real estate, not right away, right? We need to find a piece of real estate that we want to buy, make an offer, and it has to be accepted. Very similar to acquiring an existing business. So Darius wants to know, well, how long would it take him to go buy, let's see, he wants to buy, I'm just making this up, a donut shop in Farmers Branch for 1.2 million. Well, we're going to have to go to the donut shop and get their financials because the lender is going to want to see how that business is performed. So timing is going to vary. We're going to have to work with each participant to determine what they want, what combination of these, all or some of these, and then put together a timeline for them. It's not reasonable to think that there's some standard answer. If we're going to do real estate, like in our case, we bought the property and now we're building a new office building on that property. Well, think about the steps. You got to get an architect, you got to get your general contractor, you got to get your permits. It can vary. It can vary. So a lot of people, they're not as sophisticated in business and they think there's just always simple yes or no, black or white answers. But when it comes to use of funds, we have to figure out what each participant wants and then create a timeline based upon their circumstance. Jared asked a good question. Can people participate multiple times? Yes. Yeah, we have Devon, who's not on here today, but he just bought 4 shelf corps. And when I say bought, again, the grant provides it for free, but he paid 4 processing fees and we're working on 4 capital raises. So what does make sense, and that's a good point, Jared, let's go say that I want to buy a bunch of businesses. I want to be the next Warren Buffett, right? I want to own a home care service and a collision repair service and an occupational therapy. Each of these really should be a separate capital raise because lenders aren't going to really understand the relationship between unrelated uses of funds. So it does make sense to have multiple capital raises if we're doing a broad use of funds. Jay David asks people that doesn't have strong personal credit. We don't care at all about weak personal credit because credit doesn't have a memory. Credit is fluid, and the credit sweep is included, as is stated right here. So yeah, if personal credit's an issue, don't worry about it. Business credit, we're going to build it out. Let's see here. See if there's any other questions I can help. So Antonio's had a business, but it hasn't had a lot of attention, he says. Well, in general, you got to realize we're working off of a grant. So we work off of our economic incentives. So our primary focus is to help people get a shelf corp. To do a custom build to take these same things that we've talked about and put all these into your existing business is unpredictable, not structured. We don't really want to do that. So what we want to focus on is getting people a shelf corp. It's free through the grant. Just pay the processing fee. And then we can run the money through the shelf corp. We can guarantee that it works because we control those variables. And then you can move the money from the shelf corp to other entities. But as soon as we start doing one-offs or custom builds, it's not predictable, it's not fluid. So I would just say, if you're looking for a capital raise, I'd take advantage of the grant, get your free shelf corp, and then you can move the money out of that shelf corp into other entities if you want. Marcos asks minimum requirements for international. There's no variant, so it's the same. You come to 509pacific.org and you can watch the training video here that goes into more depth. You can click on the grant packet, which we've been going through. It's the same thing. So it doesn't matter your height, your weight, your gender, your location, your education. It's standardized. All right, let's see if there's anything else. Let's see. Lots and lots of feedback, which is great. We have 572 of you on. So, with that being said, I would encourage you to participate, right? If there's some offer that is incredibly valuable and it's paid for by a grant, if I were you, I'd take advantage of it, but that's up to you to make that decision. Again, you can go to 509 Pacific, you can watch the training video, which I just gave you a little view of. You can go through the grant packet, which we've been going through. If you want to participate, participate. If you're not sure if it's a good fit, what would you do? Probably go to this comparison sheet because we know what it takes to qualify for funding. And we show you what we include in the grant program, and you can decide if you have better options. Kenny asks, how fast for the payout of the grant? It's up front. It's literally up front, right? So you don't have to pay for the shelf corp and then get reimbursed. That's frankly the way it used to be, Kenny. But now, since June 1st, in fact, the grant pays for it up front. So you get the grant allocation immediately. Natalie asked, how long is phase two? Well, Natalie, I literally went through a long discussion explaining to you that there's not a simple answer, right? Do you remember, Natalie? We went through and said, well, we need to figure out what your use of funds are, and based upon what you're wanting to do, can control the time frame. Do you remember we went through that, Natalie? Okay, well, thanks everyone. We'll be back tomorrow morning if you want to follow up. We got some big news, some big organizational changes. We have some new offices we're opening. We're going to be opening branch offices. So if you're interested in running a branch office in your community and helping people, we'll be covering that tomorrow. You can always text us. You can schedule a call. 509 Pacific's your go-to place. Thanks everyone. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.